Greetings. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rob Bishop. You can tell by the accent I'm not a native-born Kiwi. Say I'm a Kiwi by choice rather than chance. I came out here 25 years ago, and since then I've been working, helping big companies save energy, mostly in commercial and industrial sectors. My belief is that there are very large, very inexpensive energy savings widely available in New Zealand, which are mostly not being taken up. My purpose of the talk today is to show you the results in one large building here in Wellington. I believe it's extrapolatable to many other buildings. And the focus of today's talk is on how you verify the energy savings, how you prove that the savings have actually been achieved, because I see this as one of the failings, one of the things we've missed. The building in question is the Reserve Bank building, number 2, the Terrace in Wellington. It's a large building, around 20,000 square meters. And the history of this building is interesting. The building's energy manager went to a course I taught in 1999, went back and applied most of the things he learned, and was able to reduce the energy use in the building by about a third. So its area energy use index is down to 192 kilowatt hours square meter a year, compared to the standard of around 280. The 30% savings he achieved, I believe, is typical of most large commercial and industrial facilities all across New Zealand. That's in retrofit. If new construction was done and everything was done correctly the first time, the savings would be much larger, typically around 80%, I believe. A couple of qualifications in there. Mechanical pulp mills and aluminum smelters have most of their energy use going into some specialized processes, which use typically 80% of the power used by those plants. So the savings are not for those two types of facilities. Also, residential and small commercial buildings are normally under-serviced. That is, they're cold and dark, and so the savings potential is not there. However, everything else, probably 60% of New Zealand's commercial area, about the same fraction of industrial energy use, have these savings available. At the Reserve Bank, we made some pretty simple changes. We raised the temperature at which cooling was supplied. So instead of cooling the building at 23 degrees, we're cooling it at 24. We lowered the temperature at what heating was supplied. So instead of heating to 21, we're only heating to 20. A lot of people would say, well, if you reduce the heating and reduce the cooling, the building will be less comfortable. Not actually the case, as I'll show later on. Fix some temperature sensors, reduce the minimum amount of outside air being brought into the building. Switch the boiler so it wasn't running all summer long. Switch the chillers so they weren't running all winter long. Change the water heating schedule. The interesting thing with all this, these are non-capital improvements. These are operational changes. There were a few capital improvements, and all the capital improvements were around improved metering. So we could go back after the fact and make more savings. So the improved metering was installing time of use meters on the gas meter, the water meter, and many of the individual mechanical plant rooms and individual floors in the building. So now we can go back and see when the power is being used and try to determine if it makes sense or not. Two more things about this project which make it unique, which make it successful, I believe, were the fact that it was a collaborative project. It wasn't just a consultant came in and said, do this. It was working with the bank staff, mechanical engineers working there, mechanical maintenance contractors working there, the controls contractors. So they were all committed to the project. They all had explicit buy-in and were working with us. The other unique thing about this was it's an ongoing project that is still going on today. So this talk is about energy savings verification. The point of verification is energy savings are not a physical quantity. You can't put a meter on it and measure how much is saved. So savings are, well, should be defined, not defied, defiantly defined, as the difference between what was actually used and what would have been used if the measures were not implemented. So the savings are a baseline minus actual use. So what I'm going to show you now is how you come up with those baselines. There is an international protocol for it, IPMVP it's called. It's administered from a website called the Efficiency Valuation Organization. It's rarely been applied in New Zealand, in my opinion, and it's pretty easy to do. At the Reserve Bank, because the person had gone on the course and had measured the energy use for 10 years, we had a good long history 12-year history of how much energy was being purchased. So you can see in the late 90s, they were using around 6,000 to 7,000 kilowatt hours a day. When Chris did his savings measures, he did all the obvious stuff: better lighting, switch off campaigns, cut the energy use by about 30%, down around 5,000. And then it started creeping back up again. Well, the baseline, the benchmark set by the Property Council has gone up as well. So he's still, even with the 2006, 2008 use, is still 30% below the Property Council benchmark. We chose 2006 to 2008 as the time we would take the baseline from. This next slide shows the daily energy use. So this is the electrical energy use day by day for those 2.5 years. At this level of detail, you can see those peaks in the summertime. Those peaks are caused by air conditioning. The lower line is the weekend energy use, and it varies a little bit. From that, we took a look and said, so what is the energy use as a function of outside air temperature? Now that we know that it's the air conditioning driving electric energy use, and we see for 2.5 years, yes, there's a bit of scatter, but that black line up the middle says the warmer it is, the more electricity the building uses. That is our baseline. We agreed with the people in the building. And we took a look at the 3 years to see if there's difference year by year. So there's 3 separate regression lines, and they're a little bit different, but in my opinion, basically the same. A weekend, no temperature effect, really. So comparing directly to the baseline, these are the years after we made the changes, and yes, they are consistently below that baseline curve, so the savings are occurring. One thing we did is we took a look at it day by day for 2 reasons. One is we wanted to be able to report to the building owners that yes, there are savings. We are making savings every day. So the red line here, the red points, are the baseline for that day. The blue points are the actuals. So looking on a monthly basis, looking at monthly average, we can see that the blue is the baseline, the red is actual, and we are consistently coming in below the baseline. This is a measure of day by day what the savings had counted up to, and we're up to now over 300,000 kilowatt hours a day. The other advantage of looking at it daily is we can see when we make a change, you can see right away what the effect is. So if something breaks, you can find it right away. And gas, we did the same thing. So I'm going to show you how we got the gas baseline now. This is the historical use. The New Year's Eve is basically the vertical lines. So the gas use peaks in the winter, as you'd expect for space heating, around 7,000 kilowatt hours a day. It's a minimum of around 2,000 kilowatt hours a day. In the summer, the last 2 years, unfortunately, the gas company was measuring less, and so there's a lot of estimated readings in there. Again, we took the regression of gas use as a function of outside air temperature, and we saw, of course, more gas use when it's cold. That's our baseline. Turning into a time series, getting rid of the scatter caused by the estimated readings comes up something like that. And so this is the results. The red and yellow circles are what we achieved after the fact. The blue points were before. The black is the baseline. Another interesting thing here, those red triangles. Those red triangles show as we were fumbling around before we actually got the real savings. And the bank was sympathetic, and they were happy to know that we knew that we weren't actually achieving the savings. This shows the effect in a time series. From the start of the project, we're being consistently below the baseline, and at the best times, well below the baseline. This is a cumulative savings, so we're now around 1 million kilowatt hours or a gigawatt hour of gas savings. Did it affect the comfort in the buildings? Well, the great thing about the Reserve Bank was they were measuring comfort complaints month by month for 5 years before we went in there. So we had a baseline for that. So our intention was to give comfort at least as good as what they'd achieved before. And, well, that's what we got. So on this graph, this shows complaints month by month. The dots are individual months for the previous 5 years. The green line is what we achieved. The cumulative complaints over the time of the project, we're on track to hit the lowest ever. So in summary, the Reserve Bank saved 22% of its energy use after we were already 30% below the benchmark. Savings were verified using that protocol. Cost effectiveness, it was a 1-year simple payback. And we think we're going to get another 20% savings this year with a few more technical fixes. Finally, I think the scale of savings we achieved at the Reserve Bank should be achievable in most large commercial and industrial facilities across New Zealand. Thank you.